Hi folks, welcome to Read Love Guitars. My stomach's rumbling. Sam here, and it's a Friday night in the summer time when the living is easy, and I've got here Sam's Ibanez Gio, and this is a guitar that came in a couple of days ago, and it's in for a setup and some new pickups which are over there. So let's see what we've got. Well, it's a Ibanez shaped thingy, fairly familiar kind of construction, standard thinnish bridge, side plate, got some new tuners for this, nice neck actually, nice grain on that neck, straight lines grain. Yeah, so it's a sort of an entry level Ibanez with this slightly interesting saddle bridge, which doesn't seem to be doing the right thing at the moment. I think it's too tightened anyway. But the thing that interested me about this guitar straight away is, well, first of all, the setup we're going to go for a Tusq nut here, Tusq string trees, and actually we're going to improve the saddles here by putting Tusq String Saver saddles on here instead of the metal ones, and these look corroded too, so we'll get rid of those. Oops, sorry. And so that was the plan, and then I plugged it in yesterday and discovered that there was more wrong with it than I had thought. So if I put you down over here, and let's zoom out for a bit further, yeah. So just a quick check on this. It didn't come with a tremolo arm, so I managed to find one of a replacement or spare one for that straight away from my box of many spares. Get this over my head without hitting the mic. Yeah, so this one struck me as interesting, and I don't quite know how Sam's been getting along with this for a while. So if we put the power on, wherever it is, we've got batteries here just about. Yeah, very weird. So it's got a drop C tuning. I don't know how you play drop C, but anyway. So it's a bit buzzy for starters. Given that it's humbuckers, everything metal kind of, I ground the thing. So that's a bit funny. And then what I noticed was the volume works as a volume, but the tone works more of a volume than a tone. So something not right about that, so we're going to have a look at that too. On top of that, the jack socket's loose and the strap button is loose. So quite a few things to do, but none of it should be, nothing that should be out of the ordinary, or nothing too weird. So I'm going to take the strap off at this point. Yeah, it was interesting I'm going to set this up with the guitar in the drop C tuning, just to make sure that we get the best setup possible in that way. But I don't really know what one plays or how one plays drop C. I don't quite. My head doesn't fit. I'm sorry, I'm a bit filthy because I've been doing another thing. What I've been doing earlier on was I've got this sort of leftover spare parts SG I'm making out of a sort of junk neck that I've sort of upcycled, which all of it's going to be TV yellow, so it's all going to be covered up. But I did a neck joint which I clamped so tightly, idiotically, before the glue dried or anything, it split. So I've glued it up and filled a few little things here and there with resin. Anyway, that's I've restrung that tonight because I want to leave it strung up and make sure the neck joint is strong enough, and then if it stays in good shape over the next couple of weeks, I'll get back onto it. So what do I want to do to this? Well, we've got quite a bit to do, and I think reality is we more than anything else, we've got to take things apart. So I could do fret leveling now, but I don't want to be trying to set the action with these Ibanez saddles because they're grungy and worn out. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a different way from normal. So I'm going to undo the strings, and I'm going to, what did I notice? No, everything should be right. So I'm going to undo the strings, cut off some of them if necessary, and I think I need to take care of as much as possible first before restringing. But I need to keep hold of these strings because they'll be good for fret leveling. So first thing I don't want to do is kind of ruin them completely. But yeah, so that was the only things. I just want to check for any grounding issues or shielding problems or whatever, and then we'll give it also a good old overall cleanup, which it could do with, along with fitting the new pickups. And of course we don't really know what's happening with that tone pot without getting inside. So I think it feels to me like get everything off, clean it up, take care of the nut, put the new saddles on, check inside for the electrics, do the pickups, and then work it back outwards from there. So sorry, I'm not very good with my zooming in and stuff. My camera angles are pretty poor. So there's the bridge. Now I think straight away the Ibanez. I think straight away what I've probably got here is that these feel like they're too far in, which is a common mistake to make, which will push the. I'm not sure about the design of this, so this may not be the case. If it has a chamfered front edge, which is normally what it needs for the tremolo to work properly, then you tend to find that it only really works if the screws aren't screwed all the way in, and if they are over tightened, then they can prevent the thing from moving. So I'm going to take the plate off the back, and take the springs off and everything, so we can get the whole bridge off and give it a clean up. We might as well, since we're kind of going through everything here, also got to find out where the tuners are. They arrived yesterday. Okay, so the bridge is, standard looking thing. So we'll take off the 3 springs in straight line. I'm just checking that's the bridge is grounded, so there shouldn't be a major problem there. Let's take off the strings if I can. Oh, blimey! Get them out successfully. So this is always a problem working with. Sorry, the camera view is probably terrible. Problem working with old strings is that they never want to come out. Always. You can see they're always tangled up. So if you need to reuse them, you either got to try and flatten them out a bit, or find a way that they'll come out without snagging everything else in the mix. So I'll just put them on there. Yeah, so sometimes this is an example of, we've already got a few things to do, like fit tuners, fit new bridge saddles and so on, and then you sort of, we've also got pickups to fit, and then when you've got all that, and then you come across a problem, for example, like the tone not working properly, then you sort of, it's not such a mad thing, because you can say, all right, well, while I'm there, I will take a look at this and see what I can see. These strings are not quite that keen to come out through the hole here. Just trying to keep them all in order. I'll change the camera angle in a second. Alright, strings all out for a minute. Put them somewhere to one side, because I'll use them for the leveling part of the game. Okay, so now we have, let's take out, just seeing what you can see. Let's take this out, and I'll clean it and take it apart and just examine it. So I want to know its construction under the front edge, because it's not a bridge I'm familiar with, and it's got similar construction The difference is that it's got a countersunk screw, and the screws act as a pivot edge for the tremolo bridge, but this has a countersunk screw, so it's different from a strap one which has a flat topped, dome topped screw. So this one looks like it wants to be done up a bit tighter, but it still has the chamfered edge. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, yeah, it's got the chamfered edge, so it doesn't want to be tightened down so it kicks up. But okay, that's all right. Let's take off the strap button, which is hanging out, and we'll put that back in separately. This one's a bit loose too. So by the time I've had a look at all of this and cleaned everything, it's going to be putting it together from the ground up again, really, which is okay. It's no big deal. So now we're on to the next bit that we want to take care of, which is the electrics. So let's just have a look and see if anything immediately, straight away, shouts, I'm missing a wire, or I'm a cold solder joint or dry joint or whatever they call it, because it isn't working right. The other thing, before I take this right off, is if we take off the, sorry, whatever that was, take off the knob here, there'll be a bunch of plastic under there. Hard as hell, but that plastic makes a horrible crackling noise as you, and it's under there. Yeah, so we'll clean that up. But it makes a horrible swishing, crackling noise when you use the thing. Right, so we'll get all of this out. Is that a split? No, it's not. It's okay. I thought it was a split. It's a kind of crimp in the finish. Looking at the frets while I'm undoing screws, look okay. The nut is a new bone, and some people will be surprised why I would be wanting to replace or remove a new bone, and only because, personally, because Tusq is better than new bone. So we've got a fairly nice access here. I'm just going to take the jack out as well. If there could be, for example, a grounding problem under here, in which case, if you have a ground buzz, you really want to check every bit of it. And if you don't take the socket out, first of all, it's loose and we need to tighten it anyway. But if we don't take it out, the other part is that we can't check it and make sure. So I'm just going to undo it for a minute and pull it back out through here. Will it come out through here? Oh no, it might be no, it's got an unhelpful corner. Right, what I'm going to do, so I can just get all of this out and check what's going on, is I'm going to cut it here and pull this out like so, and then I'm going to cut this here and take it out. So that's everything out, and we can give that all a clean and make sure there's nothing obvious. Now, I don't think it has any shielding, and we haven't agreed to do any. They're humbuckers, so they technically shouldn't need it. Maybe shielded under the finish, I don't know, but anyway, we'll give it a good clean. So all of these look okay to me. Let's have a look, a better view. I'm kind of concerned that the battery won't last forever on this phone. So there we have it. Switch goes, the jack socket goes out through a little hole here where it doesn't really need to be, it could be a bigger. But anyway, there's the sort of, there's a little bit of splitting here on one of them. You see that one there? Crack coming across this way. No big deal, and that horizontal bit there, or that line there, is actually a crimp where the plates stood on the finish and it's kind of dried or set. So looking at all of this, that looks okay to me. So obviously I'll just stand it down here for a minute, because the next thing we need to think about, or have a quick look at, we need to change the pickups on this too, is this, and see why there would be any tone not working. That's interesting. No reason why that shouldn't work. We might replace the pots anyway. So we've got a 3-position switch which goes across in groups of 2 pairs, which looks about right. We've got 2 wire, are they 5 wire? Hard to see. Well, that's my bit cut off there. There's the output. It looks very straightforward, but I'm not sure why this tone pot isn't working properly. I'm trying. Sorry, the view must be terrible. I'm trying to see if there are any obvious things touching anything else. Let's see if I've got a couple of new pots, which I'm sure I have. 500k mini pots. Alpha Jobbies. That's a long one, that's a short one. Hello, what's here? Bourne's Blend Pots. CTS, there's a short scale one. And that is a 500k. And this is a 500k. So, I'm going to get rid of these anyway, that's the wrong thing. So I'm going to remove, okay, where's the cutters? Did I just use the cutters? I cut the strings, didn't I? And then I lost the cutters. Here they are. Okay, so we've got to change these out. So let's sort of look at it as we go, really. Sorry, hitting my thing. Right, so there we have output from there goes to there. So is it the bridge? The bridge is an Ibanez. It's got an extra wire here, and that's interesting. A single loose wire. What's that all about? Could be partly what's going on. I don't know. Let's have a quick look. So we've got 2 core wire here with braided core wire, and that's isn't that typical? It doesn't tell you which is the bridge. It does it on here. Yeah, neck. Okay. So we've got to get rid of these old pickups first of all. So I'm charging up my thing at the moment, my screwdriver, so it makes this a bit longer. Actually, I probably need it more now for this than I need it charging. So let's give it a go. Zoom out. Oh, come on, useless thing. So that's interesting. There's an extra wire on this neck pickup for reasons I actually don't know or understand. So I'm going to put the outgoing screws over there, because we obviously don't want to mix them up with the new ones. So we have the neck pickup goes to there, the bridge pickup goes to there. Is that touching? Possibly. And then the output from the middle. So neck is on the, I'm just going to jot it down because I'm terrible at remembering which way round these go. So the neck is over here and the bridge is over here, just for my own peace of mind. So really we're going to just cut all of this off. As simple as that. Come on. Come on. Also we'll do is I think I'll give the knobs and the knobs are clean as well, because they're grimy from many years of goo. Yeah, I don't know what this spare wire was doing hanging off this pickup. That's odd. Oh, come on. That is lousiest. charging I've ever heard. Terrible. Right, so this one came over here. We had the extra red and we had a white that went over there as well. So that's that one out of play for a minute. So now we've got a ground wire to the bridge, which technically doesn't need it. We've got the output to there, we've got the input to there. So let's snip those back, which we have. Let's snip that off, which we have. And then let us, I suppose, so you know what, I'm going to use new wire. I'm going to snip that and take the rest of it away. That's me jack wire, I'll keep that because it's good stuff. So basically I'm going to chuck these bits away. Ugh, including this horrible plastic now, which will disappear as well. Never to be seen again or heard again. So the reason I'm changing these pots is for the simple reason that because something isn't working and I don't know what it is, it doesn't make any sense to start with a fault that something isn't working right and then to stick with the components for the sake of the cost of a couple of mini pots, because you're playing with uncertainty from that point onwards, and if you do something, make a change and it still doesn't work, you don't really know whether it's it's something you've done, or whether it's that existing fault in the that was in the pots that you didn't want to change for the sake of a couple of quid. So I think it makes a lot of sense to change them. So what I'm going to just do is, before I change them, I'm going to get my cleaning fluid, which makes me shudder now since I accidentally swallowed a load of it a week or two ago, and I have to just keep on, like getting back on the horse once you've fallen off. I just have to make myself use it, even though the smell of it now makes me feel vile and bilious, as they used to say. Okay, so that's giving that a bit of a clean. Let's give the other side a bit of a clean as well. Don't know how far I'm going to get on this tonight. I took longer on the SG, but we shall see. As long as it's nothing unusual comes up or anything too complicated, we should be all right. Cleaning scratch plates is not the most effective thing, because they sort of build up a dullness and a crud over a period of time. I have found that if you treat them like you're trying to clean a finish on a guitar, you can actually get them, you can polish them all the way through the grits and grades and get yourself quite a nice finish. So you can restore the shine, but you literally have to treat it as if you were polishing gloss lacquer or something, which is a lot of extra hard work. So these haven't got the little locator lugs, so what I will do is use a tiny dab of that one's got a locator lug. So one of them has and one of them hasn't. I would use a little tiny bit of thread lock if necessary. Oh yeah, come on, gee whiz. And that one is missing its bits and pieces. Let's see if I've got another one of these, the same. They're all A's anyway. CF. So were these CFs that came off? I think they were. Oh, CF. No, Alpha. There's that one. Too tall. Sorry about this. That's got a locator lug as well. That one hasn't. That one has, but has no extra bit. What's this one? That one hasn't. Too long. I don't want to use the long one, really. Let's see what's close to which one. These. Oh, there's A500Ks. Let's try these and make sure they fit. one of those, that fits, one of those, that fits, and one of these, and one of these. Okay, those will do. Put those away, one side. Sorry, terrible camera work and stuff. So the question is, do we need the lift of an extra thingy, or do we go straight in and go through the hole? Actually, we can go straight in. That's enough. Very well. Get in the hole, please. So, good thing about that is then it doesn't need the extra Loctite thread lock, which it doesn't need much of anyway. But it's always, I sometimes use it just to make sure nothing spins around. And that one's the other one. Okay, so we're going to do this as a simple quote-unquote rewire, because there's no complicated switching. These are the replacement pickups, are 2-wire pickups, so they should be simple to fit and wire up. So we start with the neck and we look for the correct springs and screws, which hopefully are all going to be there, 4 and 4, yes. Okay, so start with one. Now I've got this silly screwdriver now, it's not going to help me because it's out of juice. Also, you find that when you start with springs that are this long, the maker sort of thinks it's a good idea to have this much tension, because hey, it wouldn't work without this much tension. But look how difficult it is to line them up to begin with. See, I couldn't even pick up the screwdriver because this thing just doesn't want to stay in one place when you're squishing the whole lot together so much, and there's no other way you can get the two things to meet up. And as you go and do that, you realize that BareKnuckle, in their wisdom, has given you a slotted screwdriver, so you can't even use your blasted... I don't like that touch, BareKnuckle. I've experienced it a few times recently with your pickups, but when I'm sort of half holding everything in this stupid ultra death grip, which never works out, I don't need to be manhandling a vintage old-fashioned style screwdriver. I need a thing I can just push in the end and get going. And also I don't need an extra ton of spring for no good reason, so I'm going to now edit these down, because the more I have to push whilst holding the thing, which way up I'm going now? Get myself right. Yeah, the more I have to push while I'm holding this thing in place, the harder it's going to be to actually get this thing started. You can see I'm really finding it difficult to get anything located on that hole. It just doesn't want to do it. And that's probably because the hole's filled with wax, which is always good, but from the wax potting process. But as you can see, it really doesn't help the wind or the screw in. So I'm going to try one more thing, which is to just wind that on a little bit to begin with, and on this side too. But there's little things like that. It's the most annoying, this process of trying to fit pickups, and find yourself in this completely caggy, ham-fisted kind of approach. You can't really see it, or maybe you can. Maybe I'll just stand this up a bit. But there's this, so I'm having to physically meet up, try and push together the end of the screw into the receiving hole in the lug, and then I have to now get it to bite, which I've managed to do. Now I've got one end on, right? But I couldn't do that without shortening the screw, sorry, the spring, which was unnecessarily long, because it's not even anywhere close to the front of the pick guard, so I'm going to be winding a ton of this in anyway. Okay, so now that's on, but again, you know, I've now got to manually screw this for quite some time before this will come anywhere near the front of the guard. That could be, you know, when you choose to do it with a slot, it just means you can't really practically do it with a powered driver, you know, so that you're condemning somebody to sitting here doing this for quite some time, which I could do without. So then you're there, and you look how much screw you've got sitting out the back there. You hope that the cavity in the guitar will accommodate that, because you don't need, well, here's what you don't need. If you went backwards to flush, right, the lowest you're ever going to have this pickup is flush with the pick guard. You're never going to be underneath it. So what I tend to do is I tend to take the, see, I can't even turn this successfully. Take that back to there, flush, which is the lowest it's ever going to be, and I clip off the spare or the remainder of this material, because it isn't going to do anything for me. If I can actually cut it with these crappy old things. Right, so all it's going to ever need to do from there is go inwards, which means I just tighten it up and the screw will come further out this way. So that's all I need to do. So having learned from that, I'm now going to cut these two back as well. Maybe a little bit shorter even. 1, 2, and then try and prep bridge. Yes. So I'm going to push through any wax that's there. Alright, alright. And I'm going to line up my screws. Put on the first one. Get the writing the right way round. Well, yeah, that's it. See, I don't even know if that's the correct way round. I'm following the writing, but that then puts the pickups onto opposite sides. Sorry, the output wires onto opposite sides, which doesn't seem the most logical thing, but the writing suggests that's the correct way up. So I could be wrong about this. We're not splitting any coils, so there isn't any sort of worry about which is which. So now look, you can see I've got absolutely miles of screwing up to do, and you can see how hard it is to screw, doing a lot of turning with a flat-headed screwdriver bit. It's just not built for it. I know, an old hand would say, of course, that's how we did it in the olden days. It weren't Phillips screwdrivers or such like. But you didn't have to faff about with this for hours on end. Again, I'm going to pull this through to flush with the plate, and then I'm going to snip off any unnecessary excess, because there isn't going to be a situation where we send this below the level of the scratch plate. I think that's entirely unrealistic to think we would. So, you know, there's a chunk of excess material not doing anything. Come on. Where did that go? It came off and magnetically stuck to something. There it is. So that has me slightly interested. So I don't know if you can't, maybe you can see there. The writing is now all the correct way up, but you can see that the wiring isn't exactly. Now we've got a central, oh, this is crap as well. So we've got a central thing going on here with the wiring. So it goes like that and like that. So this is, right, oh my goodness. That goes off to the right hand side of there, so it has to come down to there, and it has to come pretty much on. I think we're going to have to do it a bit like this. The only way we know this is going to work is that it comes off the, there's a little central gap down here in the on the cavity, and the only real space is we've got a space there and we've got a space coming to the immediate left or right when it's the other way over of the bridge pickup, so we have to just follow that to make sure that it fits in. Now I'm looking for some cable ties, 1 or 2 maximum, and the cable ties are quite good because you can use them to hold things that wouldn't otherwise stay in place. So for example, we want that there, and that there. So just, hopefully, we'll just keep that where we want it. There. And then a bit further along, we're going to go neck. So that's got to come down to the bridge, but we've also got to get up to the neck. But we don't want a load of braided wire going up there as well. So that's going to be as long as we need. And then the bridge one is going to come to the top of the pot there as well, and we just want to go through to there. So there's no point carrying around a ton of wiring that isn't going to do anything for us. That's the important thing. So what I'm going to do, because we're going to go to the top of this pot with both of these, so let's have a joining thing. Let's join them up sort of here so they continue to behave the way we want. Okay, so follow the things. Right, the neck is the top one. So we now need to unpick these braided wires, because we don't need all of this braid. So we gently unpick it and make sure that we leave enough of the exposed inner wire to go to the input on the switch, and then we need to leave some braid that we can join together with the other braid, and they can ground on the top of the pot. I know, it always sounds like I'm saying top of the pops, which I'm not. I'm not sure I ever really liked Top of the Pops. I think I used to watch it because there was something you, as a kid, it was like you had a duty to know what was #1 in the charts, even though you were cynical as a kid because you knew it was all fixed by those people like Mickey Most with sort of stupid perms. They were sort of middle-aged already, and you knew that they were rigging the whole thing, and it was dodgy. And it's kind of like why you felt sort of empathy with Johnny Rotten and people like the Pistols, because you knew that they represented a bunch of kids like you who were able to say, this is a rip-off, it's all a fix, it's a swizz, and so on and so forth. And so it was, a rotten swizz. Right, so this is going to go to the neck, and I'm going to have to get me Bernie hot thing out. But we might as well do all of this while we're at it, because it's got to be done. So it might take a minute or two while I retrieve the soldering station from where it has been, because it's been home. Done home dining table duty during the COVID thing, when it just felt like too much to go up to the workshop in 38-degree heat and feel ill at the same time. Not a good thing. So here we have these bits, those bits, those bits. Sorry, that's it. My soldering, I'm struggling, not wanting to plug in. Right, need a drink of pre-prepared squash juice. Still a bit on the fizzy side, so burps to be expected. Now, this here stuff, this wire here, pushback wire, it's sort of designed so that you just literally push it back and away it goes. Ew, that's a mess. But in my experience, it doesn't really seem to want to behave that way, and so I often end up trying to cut it, and then it repays me by going all furry and making a mess. So and I can never win. So I'm going to try and use it as pushback wire today. So this is going to be, let's just double check, this is the neck pickup, and that's going to attach to this bit here. Now this bit here, actually, I don't know how they've bridged across here, so I'm just going to sort of try and find out. Okay, so they've, right, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that piece of wire making that bridge across there, and I'm going to just attach the new wire when it comes across with a blob of solder, rather than try and make it go through any holes and do clever things. But I'm not going to do that just yet. But I don't know. I'm so torn. No, I've lost my blade. Let's try that one. I am going to cut it. It's wrong of me, but I much prefer to have just a clean piece of wire to work with. So I'm gently snipping around, and that way I can start by loading this piece of wire with a blob of solder, which is how I'm going to want to attach it to the switch, really, with just a hanging blob like so. So that readies me for the neck. Now I'm going to need to strip back the braid from the other piece, the bridge one. Braided wire, if it's grounded, and if the braid part is grounded, then it protects or shields the inner part. The braiding acts as a shield, which is pretty good, or it acts as a cage, I suppose it's called, Faraday cage, which is supposed to help prevent electromagnetic frequencies interfering or getting into your wiring and then into your amplification and coming out as a buzz or a hum. It's supposed to reduce that. So that's why braided wire was always the sort of choice of the 50s manufacturers, and particularly for the Les Paul type of instrument, where the wires had to run through a cavity, or long tunnels inside the guitar body, and in some instruments like this one, you could sort of fairly easily shield. That's what I hate, the inner bit's still attached. You could fairly easily shield the whole cavity here and ground it, because you've got access to all of it. But when you have a Les Paul, I need to pull this back to here. When you have a Les Paul, you have sort of hidden cavities that run all the way through the guitar, and you can't very easily join them up and ground them, which is why, recognizing that reality, the Les Paul manufacturers used to swear by braided wire to shield. So this is going to ground to the top of this pot, I'm going to track back which is which. This one's going to go to there, and then this one's going to go to the other end when I've put some solder on it and cleaned up the other end. And that's going to be our two hots from the pickups attached. Okay, so what I also need is I need some where this is going to sit on here. So that's going to come down to there, and that's going to sit right there. So we need some solder on the top there to receive this, help it to sit down properly. And we can start by placing this down on the top. Trouble with working with soldered things is you've got this reflection when you're using foils to ground things, shield things, and it's forever firing reflections at you, so it's hard to see the components you're working with. Okay, so we know that the output here is the two in the middle, and we know that the bridge is the one next pair down here, and they're all joined up at the moment. So we know we trace the neck back to here, and we attach the neck to this couple of I don't know if you can see very well. We attach it to the most likely looking bit to receive it, which will be there. Ow! Too hot to hold. Let's try that again. It's not my favourite joint I've ever made, but it's going to work. And then we're going to do similar. Hopefully just press it down lightly with the bridge one. Okay, and just to be absolutely sure, we double check them back. Bridge, yes. Neck, yes. Okay, now we'll have let's have a new bit of wire for grounding. We will ground the switch to the top of the pot, and we've also got to ground lug number 3 here to the top of the pot too. But we will need a new capacitor. We could use the one that's already there, but I'm not entirely confident that's going to be a good one to use. So just tinning these a minute. So here's our earth connection, ground connection coming up through there like that. And this will come back through here to the top of the pot. Yes, the top of the pot, I said it again. Now, this can either come over the top or underneath. Now we've got an extra bit here, so let's find a 0.022 capacitor. Here's a nice green one. So the reason I grabbed the capacitor is because I'm going to use part of the capacitor leg for grounding the top of the volume pot first off. If I can just get this to go through and stay. So that's where I want it to go, and how well you can see that. So I'm going to put some solder on here, on the top again, to hold this in place. Thank you. And I'm then going to do the front of the lug as well, which now grounds that to itself. And then I'm also going to use the same blob to attach our switch ground, like so. Okay, so the switch is now grounded. We've got to, what are we going to do? We're going to get a red wire for a hot, so we're going to come out from the switch to the input of here, this thing, the pot, volume pot, and then we're going to jump across from the volume pot to the tone circuit, which is the normal way to do it, which is from there to there. Now these pots should be connected by ground together because they are sitting on this conductive material, but I never totally trust it, so I usually end up putting an extra wire across for some reason, just in case that it's not a good contact. It has me nervous like. So I'm just going to pull these a bit more into correct shape. So these two go in there like that. One's going to go to the output of the switch and the other one's going to go to the input to the tone circuit. So there we have that. Can probably take off this little excess at the back like that. Then this one goes up to, oh, I need to tin it. Come on. Need a blob. Thank you. Need a blob of solder on there. Sort of load it ready to go and attach itself to the output. This is not the best pair of holding things in the world. So that's the output to the volume pot, and then the volume pot jumps across the gap to the tone pot and goes in here. Like so. Just keep it out of the way so I can do it. No, not like that. More like that. Thank you. And then the next bit we'll do on this pot will be attach the capacitor. So that's my connection to the tone, and then the capacitor comes off there, or it goes in there like so, comes onto the top. Can just leave it hanging there, that will do. So this is a very standard wiring circuit. Nothing unusual about it at all. And so I'm going to just now connect the hot lug, if you like, of the capacitor to the tone pot, or to the tone lug. And then that's all good. It can hang there. Can lift this bit off. A bit of excess. Now we've got one more thing to do. This now is the output to the jack socket, and we've got to just strip back a little bit on both ends and redo these connections. It should be fine. It's a good wire. There's no point finding another piece of wire. It's a standard shielded wire that will do perfectly well, and it's already long enough, so that's fine. Now we'll do the same to the other end. One end for the pot and one end for the jack socket. We'll use that one for the jack. Right, so at the business end we have one that goes on the top and one that comes through like so, the output. And actually this one could probably do with being shorter by quite a bit. What we don't want is the two bits to risk touching each other and grounding out, but we also don't need a long hot lug. So that can just go down into there. Let's pull this out a little bit forward, I say. Come along, get in there, will you? So getting a wire to stay where you want while you solder it can be a right royal pain. Stay, will you? That doesn't want to do it because it's pointing downwards, so I'm going to just borrow some gravity for a minute. Now the problem is, having done that, I've now introduced a bit of heat, too much heat. That's okay, it's going to work. Just didn't want to get that connected to the again. Thank you. Right, let's have a look. That's safely out of the way. If this is annoyingly, I think I'm going to rework that because it's I've made it too close now, and the result is that there's a risk of them touching out. Come on. Damn. If I'm not careful now, I'm going to run out of space. Right. Okay, well, I'll go back and create some distance this time, which I should have done before. I cut it too close. Right. What happened was that because it was just too close, it heated up the plastic or the PVC sheath of the core, and as a result it made a connection, or risked getting a connection between that and the ground wire, which I didn't need to have happen. Doesn't want to go. Part of the problem with this is when you're, sorry, you can't see now, but when you're soldering on the ground and the solder runs down into the underside of the switch of the pot, and you don't want that to happen. So you need to pick it up on its side sometimes, like this, in order to get a safe joint. But it doesn't make good camera work, does it? Dazzled again. Aye, this pair of pliers is not the greatest. for this job. Right, you all stay there, please. Okay, so there we are, ready to go out to the jack. And the only other one that we've got to take care of is the one coming back, which is, I'll do this now. The one coming back, which is the bridge ground, so which is here. We already know that. So if we were to ground that back onto a pot top, it could be either one. In this case, I think I'll use the. Oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to do a jumper, wasn't I? Yes, yes, yes. Just to be sure. So this is the. I'm making a. We're going to connect the ground for the bridge, and we're going to also. We're not going to ground a shield on this guitar because there isn't a shield, and we've concluded that we're not going to have one because it's a humbucker, and it's not strictly necessary. There's no single coil. If it was going to run in single coil mode, then I might have suggested that we do, but it isn't. Okay. Load that a bit. Thank you. So take that out from there. So this is going to go to this end. Actually, we don't have to go all the way over there. We can go to the other side of this casing here, since we've grounded it already. That would be a simpler way, instead of reheating another pot. Right, so those can then come down to here and join this little chap here. There we are. So now we've got the jack socket ready to go. We've got this in place. It should be nicely out of the way. Oh, I was going to just do a quick wipe down of the edges here. Clean up any historical grime from under the edges where the pick guard goes. Another rub down. Okay, so we have, when this wire comes through, when this wire gets connected to the jack, that will provide us with our ground coming in from outside, which will ground the top of this pot here, which will ground the bridge, sorry, the switch, which will ground this pot here, which is already grounded by this, hopefully. We've got the two pickups, hots going to their respective places, the output to the volume output to the jack, and a leap across to the tone with a 0.22 microfarads capacitor doing its job. So we turn this upside down and we line this up to go through the hole, which may not be the easiest thing, out through the hole. There we go, and we make sure this goes sort of tucked out the way. Typical, this doesn't want to come out. Good design, Ibanez. Okay, and then we just make sure everything's tidy and out of harm's way before we close everything down, and there's something getting in the way there. This is a little bit difficult because you've got to slide that thing under there at the same time as getting that one So it's this blue wire getting in the way. Come out sideways, blue. Thank you, that way. So this is now what this is sitting on, but it doesn't sit properly. And it's not because it's got a different lug. Something about this lug that doesn't want it to sit tidily. It wants to sit higher up. I'll pick up all those things in a minute. So there's something about the construction of this pickup that means the lug is sitting on the edge of this thing and it doesn't want to go down. That's odd. Well, this is going to come up, so let's start by doing this up. So I can do it without throwing any more stuff off the edge. Okay, so the problem is if I bring up the pickup further, which I'm probably going to want to do, does it make it sit better? Yes, it does. So there's room for the screw to go down, but not for the pickup to sit so low. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, that's going to be about right. Everything feels right. Good. So what I'll do is I'm going to do a bit of off the camera tidying up. But first of all, let's just take care of the jack socket. Make sure we know that it's a good wire up and stuff. So here's me wires. Here's the old one, which I need to strip the things out of. Now, this one should be functional. There shouldn't be anything obviously wrong with it, but can't be 100% sure. I don't think I've got any expensive alternatives because we're not really budgeted for them, but I've got cheap ones if there is a problem with this, but I don't really want to replace them unless it's with a better quality. So I'm just off camera unsoldering the offcut of wire, and then we're going to get down here somewhere, so you can tell it's a bit of a mess, so everything's falling into everything else. So we look at our thing and we go, right, this one here is the hot one. We need to get through there, and really we need a solder sucker, which is still a useful tool, even though some people I know prefer to use the desoldering wire, but I'm losing my dexterity. Honestly. What is wrong with me? So that's a hot lug, and that's obviously, we want that to be a nice straight connection. So like that, and then we'll just snip off the excess. Sorry, camera angle's probably still lousy. And here then we have our ground connection, which we want to get in here and tight, or fairly tight, up the other side. Like so. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so that means that it's come through, and I'm fairly confident that's a nice connection. So now I can, actually what I'll do is I'm going to put a tiny bit of light, low strength thingy on it, thread lock, only a little bit. And then once I've got that on, I will find myself a different pair of pliers, and where are they? Are you in here? Are you in here? No, you're not. Okay, are you over there? No. Are you here? Maybe not. He's trodden on the box of things he spilt. Right, so what I'll do here is I'm going to make sure this all sits in the right place. I'm going to hold that tight with that, and I'm going to tighten up with this set of pliers. And that little bit of extra thread lock will hold the everything in place. So now I'm going to go, these are chrome, that's a bit of a odd. Everything else is black screws. Never mind. Right, I'm just going to do this one up, because then, now this is a complete circuit, we can do a test of it, and then we'll know where we're at. And we want to know that this works before we do anything else, and if it doesn't, we have to ask why. Alright, let go, strings. Again, we don't need strings or anything to work, we just need now to hook this to the amp for a moment, which I will do. Then it will be time to clean up a bit. So, here we go. Volume down, volume up. Quieter. Tone, proper. Perfect. Hardly any grounding buzz or anything. So whatever that was wrong with the other pots, that's fixed it, which is why it's worth doing. So now what I can do is attach. I want to do the bridge saddles in a minute. So what I'm going to just do is line this up first and put these in. I think I should be charging this darned thing if I ever want to use it again. Right, so I'm going to attach the screws. Well, black is always the hardest thing to keep clean anyway, whatever's going on. But so you can see that that's encouraging. We've fixed the problem with the electrics at the same time as installing the new pickups, so that's good news. Whether it was to do with the extra wire floating around, not connected to anything on the other one, I've never really seen that before. I don't know what it would be, unless it was maybe it was some sort of partial coil tap, but maybe, who knows. I've not seen it really before. So as you can see, I'm putting all these back in. We might as well, because we've taken care of inside of the thing. Next stop really will be looking after the setup part of it. So we've got tuners to put on, string trees to put on, and a nut to fit. And then we'll put the old strings back on, and do the fret leveling part. But next stop before any of that will be the, I'm going to replace this one because it's a bit of an old looking screw and it might as well go on the back. Yes, we'll do the bridge saddles first and check the bridge screws to make sure this tremolo can actually pivot on them successfully. Right, so there you go, that's the business end of it, and I'll take these and give them a wash, proper wash. We may have to fill these, in fact it's probably better to fill those holes, and in order to basically make sure that the screws for the strap buttons stay in place. So putting a piece of, gluing in a piece of dowel now would be a good preparation for making it easy to secure the strap buttons later on. So it's never actually a bad thing to do because they always wear over time anyway. So again, while I'm at it, giving this a clean over with the naphtha solvent, which is the good stuff for cleaning guitar finishes. Definitely good for that, definitely not good for drinking. As I foolishly tested out. Okay, so that's, oh, let's do the neck while we're at it. We've got to do the headstock separately because I'll have to get the tuners off and locate where I put the new ones. Right, okie dokie. Where did I put the new ones? I'll pick those up in a minute. Somewhere is going to be a set of tuners. I brought them up with me yesterday. They're not there, they're not there, they're not there. There's a BareKnuckle Pickups for, what's this for? Oh no, these are leftovers. I inherited those. Okay, I've got to go and look for the tuners. But before I do that, let's just stand this out of the way for a minute and stay, and we'll just take a look at the bridge saddles while we're in business. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so I've got these string savers by Graphtec, and they're very neat. Now the question is will they work? So I'm just looking at where the intonation point is. So I just made a little mark in the grease. What I want to make sure straight away is that the next thing I put on will reach there and do the job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check and see if it will work with this longer screw that comes with these. It's not the right size, so we'll start as we mean to go on with the. This is just a test to make sure stands a chance of working. I think that's just about on the mark. These were designed for strats really, but that would just about work. So I think we're okay. We could do a slightly longer spring, that's about the only thing, which we could probably use the black spring on this. Put that there. Actually, so what I'll do is let's just put that there and there, and I'll take all of these off now because that means I can clean up the whole piece, and we can then just put everything back on. So I'll keep the black springs out, because the idea of this is that even though I don't think Sam was properly using the tremolo before, there's no reason why it shouldn't work now. If it would either be locked down and inactive, or it could be set to slightly down only, or it could be set to fully floating. And there's no reason especially with Tusq saddles, Tusq nut and Tusq string trees, there's no reason why this guitar shouldn't operate the tremolo very effectively without any tuning issues. But it sort of depends mostly on getting it depends on the screws, the tremolo screws, working properly. So, and those are the ones over there. The saddles are sort of what they are, and the bridge is what it is. As you can see, it's just a lump of chromed stuff. A bit grimy, but let's give it a clean as well. Once it's a little bit cleaner, that's it. We can kind of reconstruct it with the black screws in operation. So these are the same width as the ones that came off, which were 10.5mm. So I'm going to start with that one there at its full stretch, and it's good because the spring works perfectly at that length. So we're just borrowing the springs from the existing setup because they're the right length. Keep everything under tension. It may be that we need to cut down a little bit on one of them as we get closer, but we shall see. So the idea here will be just to set this up roughly in intonation correct to begin with, and then obviously we'll check it and double and triple check it when the time is right, when we've got the strings on. We'll probably check it with using the old sacrificial strings and then just fine tune it when the new strings go on. So what I'm doing is just setting a sort of standard stagger pattern, 2 groups of 3. This is made of Tusq XL, this material, so it's very good. I guess it's an equivalent of Teflon, PTFE or Teflon. It seems to be interchangeable the way they refer to it, but either which way, it's your non-stick material that you get in your frying pans. So judging by the width of everything, these are going to do a good job on this bridge. Like I say, the next thing is just got to make sure that the bridge operates smoothly and the tremolo screws that anchor it are good enough for the job, because as I say, they've got this strange countersink thing which is a bit unusual. I suppose it's not a problem. What are these things? We've got numbers on them. No, they can't have. There's no way a human being could read whatever that was. It's just a little mark. No, it's not. I was kind of looking, going, oh, don't tell me they've actually numbered these saddles. But they haven't. They are just little strange production marks. I thought they were going to do that thing where those young people who invent things take the mickey out of us old people whose eyes are fading, and they make things so small that it's not a hope in hell that you're going to read them. Okay, nice, like it. Put these other bits in here. Mix and match now, but that's okay. These look a bit corroded, the grub screws on here, and I'm not sure whether they are, but I'm glad I don't have to try to adjust them, because the worst thing is if you're committed to using a set of saddles and then when you come to set your preferred action you discover that the grub screws have corroded over the years, and as a result you can't make any height adjustments and you have to start again. Okay, so those can go with the other pickups. They came off in the other pickups. Go in the box. And here's where the new ones are going to go. Sorry, the old ones are going to go in here, like so. Or sort of like so. And those on top. Take the wires in. That's you out the way. Right, now let's bring the guitar back up. So the challenge is get this bridge to move smoothly, and it feels like it should, and the only problem for starters is how over tight the screws were, because it's got a chamfer on the front edge of this plate. I don't know if you can see when I'm doing this, maybe I'll try and give you a good look. So watch the back end of the plate as I tighten it up. Ready? Ready? Now, see that? Could you see the plate lift? Plate falls, plate lifts at the back edge. Right? You don't want it moving at all. So you want to tighten it up till it tries to tip forward on its chamfer, and then you want to back it off at least a whole turn, and you want it loose. So I'm going to put all of these in a similar fashion. Some of them are a bit on the mucky side, they've corroded a bit on the top end, but it's not the end of the world. Somehow I've got a spare thing, which is a strap button pretending to be a tremolo screw. Strap button screw pretending to be a tremolo screw, which is not a good idea. So what I tend to do is, while I'm attaching this now, I'll literally hold down, the same with the Strat, Fender Strat, I'll hold this down and I can feel immediately as this thing bites and starts to push, so I back off. And I do the same with all of them, so none of them is pressing hard down. You want, when the springs are off, you want that clacky, free, unrestrained movement. So again, hold down, hold down, hold down. As soon as it bites and moves the plate, back off. We should be fine. I mean, right now you could just do it by eye, you don't really need to feel your way, but it's a good practice so that you know that you're not, at any point, not one of these screws is putting that front edge under pressure, because they're only there all together to hold the bridge. Well, first of all, they're there to provide a wall or a surface for the sharp edges of these little circles to tilt forward on, right? And if this even tightens up at all, you just make sure everything's loose enough so this is completely free. It feels good. Now it's still enough to hold everything in place, even though the screws don't look like they're screwed in. We don't want them screwed in. So we go over onto the back edge and we get our springs again. Our ground wire still attached, which is good. We go off the middle one and we attach it to the middle one there. If you can hold the thing in at the right angle. It's not easy, this game. There's probably some tool you can buy, but I've never seen it. So I do it like this, with a bit of brute force and a bit of twisting. And these actually don't quite want to fit on there at all. Now this one doesn't have the room to manoeuvre, so I'm going to have to hold it from this end and drop it in. So there's me springs on. Now when I put the tremolo on, it will behave in however tight the springs are in relation to how far in or out the tremolo claw screws are. So that's pretty tight, but when it's loaded with strings pulling forward, it won't be as heavy as that. But that's got a lot of nice movement. There's no reason that won't play well. And I'm not going to make any adjustments with this. So I'm going to set this guitar, I think, with the tremolo as down only, which is a safe bet because the action is where you want it. So you set all the playing action exactly as you want it, and then you just allow the tremolo to move a little bit when you choose to. And that will make a nice playing experience. So I've got to find where I put these blasted tuners. I'm sure I brought them up here. Right, I'm going to stop for now, find the tuners, and get ready for the next stage of everything. Right, the next day we're back and we've got Sam's Ibanez Gio. If you remember, only a few seconds ago, new pickups, new wiring, new pots, new saddles, bridge locked down for the time being, new tuners, new string trees, new nut, Tusq nut, and now we're about to level the frets. So I'm going to get straight on to that and see what we can see. Let's just make sure. Yeah, so we've got quite a lot of wear on these here frets, so that's hopefully we will not only get a nice level fretboard, but we'll also get rid of the majority of this fret wear as well. That would be the ideal sort of target. Although, as you may have heard me say in the past, I don't consider trading fret life for purely cosmetic improvements where fret wear is concerned. So if the frets were all level and played beautifully, then I would not be keen just to level to clear up the wear. However, these have a combination of a little bit of buzz and the fret wear. That's pretty good actually. So a little bit of leveling and the job's a good one. So we shouldn't take too long with this, and that will be it for this Sunday in July, late July. So we're coming towards the end of our glorious British winter, and of course, no, sorry, that was a Freudian slip. British summer, and we'll be on the downhill run to winter. Good. We'll now recalibrate, but we'll also check for the bends on the G track. I was just the weird thing I was just listening to while I was preparing to do all of this, and I had some YouTube stuff on, and I've been watching a channel called The Enforcer reporting on Ukraine news, inverted commas. Now, I recognise it's a form of propaganda, so you know, it's an American guy that runs it, and he's very pro-Ukraine, and so on, so on, so on. But you know, that in and of itself isn't the end of the world. But you know, I think the idea is that it's a pinch of salt territory, because you know, we know that there is a certain amount of propaganda on every side. But one of the things that kind of slightly shocked me was to see that there's a Ukrainian website, I think it's Ukrainian, I'm pretty sure it is, that lets you a little bit to go up there. Okay. Yeah, that lets you make a contribution, a donation, to have whatever you want written on a shell that's then put into an artillery piece and fired at the Russian troops or Russian military base or whatever. And it struck me the way that the channel was discussing it was just completely unproblematic. You know, there was not even a recognition of how. Yes, I get one part of me goes, yes, that's good, let's drive them out, that shouldn't be there, no matter what the historical this, that and the other is, but I still stop short of blatantly, or you know, stop short of feeling triumphant about other people's deaths and defeats and so on. And I know that's, you know, you could say, well, if you're confident about what you stand for and the fact that one is wrong and the other one shouldn't have been invaded, and therefore the other one is right or is entitled to defend itself because it is literally life and death and all of that, then I get it. You don't have, it isn't really practical to have twinges, moral twinges about supporting the fight back. I just, I don't know, there's something about the way people can talk about it that worries me. Tiny little hint there. Just that it feels a bit game-like or something. Maybe I'm just oversensitive. I wouldn't make a good soldier, obviously, but anyway, that was just something that came up while I was getting ready for today's thing. And then in the midst of that, the funny thing was that the channel owner guy who does the commentary read the first message that was on the first shell in the video he showed, and it said something that he couldn't understand, and he tried to read it and he couldn't, and he said, oh, I don't know what that means, some language. And it caught my eye, and I sort of stopped the video and went back, and what was written on the shell was Russians Eont Domus, or something very similar to that. And any of you Life of Brian fans will know that that's a Monty Python kind of in-joke, and it's from the scene where a member of the Popular Front of Judea, or the Judean Popular Liberation Front, or whichever one it is, because they'd never know themselves, they're always fighting. But anyway, a local insurgent partisan is caught by a Roman centurion or Roman guard, caught daubing graffiti on the walls of the Roman city, and it starts out just being quite good fun, because the idea is, oh look, he's been caught, he's going to get punished, but in fact the centurion takes him by the ear and demands to forces the Judean People's Front guy to correct his bad Latin. So the first thing he says, the Roman soldier translates it, because of course the Roman knows Latin better than the Judean People's Front. So the Roman soldier translates it. He says, what does that say? And he goes, go home Romans. And he goes, no, Romans go to the house. And he sort of forces him to break it down in Latin. Then whilst holding him by the ear, sort of thing, like a bad schoolboy, centurion forces him to rewrite it in correct Latin grammar, which is a sort of very much a Monty Python in-joke. Tiny bit right at the top there. Anyway, so I thought, well, I better do my civic duty and leave a comment to that effect, because nobody at the point when I posted, I didn't think anyone noticed that it was a Monty Python in-joke. Anyway, joke in inverted commas. Right, so there are my levelled frets, and now it's time to re-crown the fretboard, and then we'll get ready for, what will we get ready for? We'll get ready for polishing the frets out, which is a bit of a long, drawn out business, which I'll do off camera. I did it on camera for the last one. It's just noisy and mucky. So what I'll do is I'll take the strings off now. These can throw away, can be thrown away, and get on there. And then after that, I'll recrown and polish. Right. So anyway, the other thing about today is I woke up today and I had a funny sort of thought. I wonder why. There's something came up. I saw something on Facebook where somebody was listed as, I don't know, age 70 or something. So-and-so, age 70. And it just reminded me that at this point in my life, that's about 11 years away for me. 11 years away. And that's a really crazy sort of thought, that 70 is only 10 years away. But it got me thinking about this and what I do, which is, in a way, I don't often think about it that long term, because it's not a, I've never seen it as a business that's kind of majorly expandable or scalable, as they would say in Dragon's Den. I've talked about this before, but you know, to a Dragon's Denner, this would be described as a lifestyle business. And I used to think, when I first started doing businessy things years ago, I used to think that expression was a put down to kind of say that something isn't a business. And actually, I've since learned that it's not a put down. It's a simple statement of fact that it basically says that the business can, you do it because you love it and you're interested in it, and it's something you would probably do even if you weren't making some money from it. And you probably do it really well, and you probably have a good reputation and so on, and maybe you're even known for it, whatever. So it's a business, and you do well at it, but it can't be grown and scaled. So it'll provide you and your family with maybe, or a very small number of people with an income. But it's kind of stuck in a very limited sort of growth. You can't scale it up, and you certainly can't exponentially grow it, which investors and people who do investment in venture capitalists and all those types, they really much prefer scalable logarithmic growth. Compound growth, something that will grow beyond the linear process. Anyway, so this has never been that, because like any inverted commas lifestyle business, it's first and foremost, it starts out being dependent on me to do it, and it's linear, and there's one of me and a certain amount of jobs I will do in a day or can do in a week or whatever. So you can never really scale it up, and even if you add one more person, it's only a linear growth, because you double the amount you're able to do, but you've got to pay double the costs, i.e. salary and so on and so forth. So you just, by doubling the number of people, you only double the amount of earnings you can make. So, but I was just, it got me thinking, just actually, what would I do, even given that I know this is not a scalable business, never has been. It is sort of a good time now, the beginning of my decade coming up soon, which will be my 60s through to 70s, I guess. It's coming up to be a good time to start just thinking about what I want to do. Not that, I'll grow it into a multi-million-pound business and be driving an Aston Martin this time when I'm 70. That's kind of ridiculous. It's more of, if I'm going to be doing this until I can't do it anymore, which is likely, what within that have I got an interest to do? Is it to build more guitars? Is it to invent something that solves a problem? Is it to teach more people something? Is it to, I don't know, it could be to, make ad revenues. After what I said yesterday, it's not going to be that, but it's potentially, not yesterday, day before. But it's just about, if you're going to do it for the next 10 years, is there anything else I want it to do than just following the kind of flow of customer jobs and so on? So I don't know the answer to that yet, but I did kind of wake up thinking a bit about it, and just grounded by this idea that, that's about it, folks. 70, kind of not really making too many complicated plans around that time or afterwards, because you know, between now and 70, you're not even entitled to, really entitled to, and it wouldn't be smart to assume good health through all that time. So I think everything, as you get into this part of your life, for most people, maybe some super ultra fit people, or whatever, sometimes that isn't even a guarantee of staying well, but you know, maybe some people feel more confident about what they can do at that age than others. But you know, as I said, it's not a scalable business, so you know, I'm going to be doing it for most, if not all of the time, kind of hands-on at the same sort of one-to-one labour to profit ratio as I'm doing now. And that, by the way, even makes massive assumptions that the state of the capitalist world doesn't fall to bits under the current, well, first of all, we don't have an all-out nuclear war. Second thing is that we don't have catastrophic global warming events, changes, you know, that maybe drive mass migrations and all kinds of other unplanned for things. So, you know, that's without even considering my own health. There's no absolute guarantee. Then there's no guarantee that the war in Ukraine doesn't turn into a full-scale East-West confrontation, which, in fact, there's never been a stronger likelihood that it will, if you're absolutely realistic about it. You know, Putin is on a track which doesn't seem to be easy to turn around from. Okay, so by the way, I've leveled I've leveled and crowned the frets now. Next thing to do is to do the sanding out, which I'm going to do starting with a 240 grit, which is an additional level of grit that I've added recently. But before I do all of that, I will load up the fingerboard with masking tape, which I've also cut to prepare earlier. So I just start with the two sizes I've got, and then I go to the cut stuff. Anyway, yeah, so it's a tenuous future because all the indicators at the moment is climatically we're in trouble, geopolitically we're in trouble, in terms of war and famine connected with war, and famine connected with global warming events. You know, so I think anybody planning confidently, or you know, taking for granted a future where capitalist systems of normal growth, quote unquote, continue as they have done so far, I think that's a bit of a mad path to be on. So I think within that context, the question of what I do with this, I think is as simple and superficial as keep doing it until the climate, the economic climate, or the Third World War prevents me from doing it. I don't think there really can be much more complexity about it than that. If things go, you know, if the mushroom clouds go up halfway through this year and everything goes to hell, then nobody's going to be paying anybody for anything, because money systems won't really work anymore, and people will not be concentrating on getting their guitars upgraded with BareKnuckle Pickups. They will be wondering about, can they grow food in their irradiated garden, and how do you make potatoes come up? And they will be looking back at trying to remember their DVD of The Martian, and to work out, can you grow potatoes from human poop, and so forth. Because in a post-apocalyptic world there will be a lot of that around, because there won't be any drains taking it away, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I know it's gloomy, but I'm more of a realist than I am an optimist, I'm afraid, when it comes to human relations, political relations. Anyway, so it comes down to the thing that this would be a crazy time to be sacrificing quality time with loved ones, or peace and quiet time in your own environment, for financial based success at this age. Not, maybe not if you're young. So I don't think any of the contingencies that we're in at the moment, anything about the situation, makes me feel that I'll be trying to grow this business. I think what I'll be trying to do is keep it at a level that can pay the bills and provide me with interesting work, and to maintain the ability to do the best possible service for customers that I can, recognizing that I don't know how long I can do that for physically, and I don't know how long the world will conspire to allow any of us to do that kind of thing, or for how long it will be relevant or even important if and when other priorities take over. But so that's the. I don't suppose no big changes in my thinking there. Just kind of looking at what that loose plan to carry on doing it until I can't do it anymore actually looks like. And I suppose what was only a bit surprising was just getting a sense of how soon away that end point is. I hadn't really imagined, I could conceive of the point where I'm not doing this. But of course, 10 years is not that hard to picture. If I was lucky to get through all of those 10 years without serious illness and so on and so forth. So within that, the challenge for me still remains what kind of work could I do best at in this sphere? What do I enjoy doing? What do I think I do best? What can I provide the most value of? If you get what I mean. Because even if it's not changing much over the years, then it's still relevant to think, actually, I want to do more of X and less of Y. One of the little tiny, and this is a tiny little aspiration, but one of the things I had experience practicing with some friends yesterday, one thing I noticed was how noisy one of my guitars was in the rehearsal space. And apparently rehearsal spaces are quite renowned for having so many things all running together in proximity that they can be really buzzy, hissy, radio interferencey. Anyway, I didn't like how noisy it was, and then I came home today and I got one of my little Trekkie guitars off the wall, and it's one that I keep going back to. Well, I go back to all of them, but I keep going back to this one because it's got a single coil. I put a single coil pickup in the neck, and but I also put a dummy coil in the middle position, so it looks like a guitar with a middle pickup, but the pickup there is only there to provide a hum cancelling function on the neck pickup. And actually, it doesn't look odd. Nobody knows whether you're playing a middle pickup or not. Nobody cares whether you're playing a middle pickup or not. It just looks like a normal guitar would look. And so, as a result, I noticed how quiet it was, relatively speaking. So I thought that's one of the things I'd like to do more of, because I remember how surprised I was at how well it worked when I first did it. And it was almost like, no, you're kidding me. This can't be this good. And it was. So I'm sort of tempted to do more of that and make it a bit more of a trademark, so that all my guitars that have any single coil action will have a dummy pickup somewhere, and that could be another sort of trademarky thing, USP thing, not USB, USP. Anyhow, that was a strange kind of thought process that came around from, oh my God, I've only got 10 years left if I'm lucky, type of thinking. So, but I think I always am conscious of those very sort of quite well-known things that people post. They're usually genuine things that, you know, some nurse who's worked with people in intensive care all their lives, or in, you know, hospices, they sort of write their memoirs or something, and then they tell the things they most heard from people nearing the end of their lives. And of course it was always, I wish I'd not chased money at all, you know, I wish I'd turned that into spending time with my family and so on. And I think, you know, we don't have to get to the very end to be thinking of that. I think it's smart to be thinking of it first, or sooner rather than later. So that's part of my actually these are pretty good. That's part of my sort of logic or thinking process. Okay, I'm going to go off camera for this noisy bit. I'm going to sand and polish out the frets. I've got things here which I might put on just now. I've got me some new felts, which has left me with a note to myself saying buy some more felts, because these are the very last strap button felts in the whole world. Let's just check this goes in tightly. Yep, that's good. So yeah, one single one left, and then I need to get some more urgently. I think I've only ever bought one lump, you know, quantity order, probably from China somewhere a long time ago. So they've lasted a long time because you don't really use them too much. But anyway, so I'm going to sand this out. I'm going to go through my 240 grit, 400, 600, 1000, 1500, and then 1500 to 12,000. Get it all done, and then clean up all the dust that comes off that, and then be ready to restring and just end up with the action set correctly, but also the tremolo set just tight enough to not move when you bend the notes, but also to be as light as possible to bend downwards to get a shimmer. So I'll see you in a bit. So we're back with Sam's Gio, and it's been leveled, recrowned, polished and oiled and cleaned up and ready to restring. And I was just doing a bit of cleaning up, and I got to say, I bought these a while back. They didn't come from the States, although they claim to be StewMac. Okay, I bought them and I used them a couple of times, and I kept trying to use them, and I've kept giving up on them because something didn't seem right. So this scratch remover was like the colour of tea cut, and it behaves like tea cut, and it's kind of the brown snotty stuff, look, and it totally scuffs up your paintwork, right? So it's not a scratch remover at all. I've used things like a Turner Shine before, which really do a great job, and you can put it straight on top of an existing guitar finish, and it makes that come up shinier than the gloss that was already there. This puts a dull, swirly patch on your paintwork. Total waste of space. So I'm binned it, even though it's half full, and I'm never going to use it again. And so on my list of things to buy, strap button felts, as spoken about earlier on, scratch remover, something similar to it as Turner Shine, but definitely not that junk masquerading as I can't believe StewMac would sell something as bad as that with its own brand on. But anyway, they seem to have, or maybe somebody's faked their containers, or I don't really know, but I am not going near that stuff again. So anyway, now we're at the fun stage. Anyway, so I had to use other compounds to shine this back to a polish, and actually I should have used things I had on the shelf anyway. I just couldn't believe, you know, a Turner Shine, which I've used before, is this stuff that basically, like I say, you have two grades, and they're both, one is lighter than the other, and you start with one, and it puts a pretty good shine on your guitar and takes away little tiny scratches, and the other one is even better. It takes it to a kind of shiny finish, and you're good to go. There's no, oh look, I have to now buff it, or I have to spend hours going through grades of paper. It is designed to go upwards from, you know, the existing finish. So and that was Eterna Shine. And again, that was an American product and it was expensive, and there were probably some other local ones in the UK which were as good, but the problem is you can't afford to just spend 25 quid each time or something and then find you bought something that I bought it because it had StewMac on it, and it's absolute crap. And the other one is it claims to be some sort of silicone cleaner, but you kind of think it would be one that you used after the first one, and actually all it seems to be is sorry, not silicone free cleaner stuff, but it just turns out that it's a sort of watery cleaner that you might as well use water or naphtha. It's got no solvent qualities at all, and it's got no shine qualities. Anyway, just a load of garbage. Sorry, I really don't know how or why StewMac had its name on it. If I could be bothered, I would write to them and say, what is this? And because I bought it in the UK and that was a bit weird, but you never know that some people have licensing, distribution deals with people, so it's not impossible that something over here is the real thing, but you don't know really. Anyway, like I say, I bought it, and I bought it because I thought it was StewMac, because it said StewMac, and whatever it was, it's crap. So I'm going to start by putting on the low C string, or what's going to be the C. So I'm going to basically string these all up, stretch them, test them, get this reset or check and reset the heights of the saddles to make sure that they're all at the right height, and then we'll intonate as the final, second to last thing. So stretch out the strings and intonate, making sure the saddles are in the right place, and as a sort of last thing, then we'll just adjust the settings on the tremolo for a light down only operation. So, and then we're done for this here Sunday. Well, I've got some other things to do, but we're nearly done this Sunday evening. I had Ryan come over this afternoon, a new local customer who brought me his Chapman Ghost Fret guitar, very heavy rock looking thing, and the guitar, no, I mean very heavy looking guitar. So, and it's nice looking and it feels nice and it looks constructed well and everything, and he really likes it. But the first thing I noticed about it is the action was too high, and there's possibly not enough room in the saddles, which are individual saddles, a bit like this one. There's not enough downward room to reach the target action that I would want, and that's because it's a through neck and it's fixed in its position. There's nothing you can do to reset or shim or anything, adjust the neck. So that really annoys me when a manufacturer with the reputation someone like that has gets the default positioning of the neck joint and the bridge that goes with it, gets it together in such a way that there isn't enough room to go down and up. You know, you should be able to take it down to 1 millimeter at the bottom, and you should be able to take it up to 3 millimeters at the maximum. Now that is only 2 millimeters as measured at the last fret, right? That gives you a lot of leeway for where to position your neck joint and how to, how much care you have to take to ensure that your your bridge corresponds to that. But they've failed to do it, I'm afraid. And they're not the only ones. I noticed that some recent Vietnamese Harley Bentons that not recent, in the last couple of years, that I'd set up. I changed the bridge, and it was actually the same height of bridge, but I came to put a roller bridge on, went to set a nice low action, and found that it just wouldn't go down to the target action. So as a result, I had to mechanically, destructively file off the underside of the either side underside of the bridge, which is a, you know, you don't really want to have to be doing that with a bloody great file and scraping the hell away. Anyway, that's what I had to do. And that's because they equally didn't place the bridge in a sensible range of positioning. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to get my jack plug out, my lead out early, because I want to get this tuning right on the C, drop C tuning, which I don't normally use. And if I get it wrong, I'll get it wrong. Now what I'm going to do, because I don't really know where I'm at, I'm going to start by tuning the A string to an A. Which I know isn't going to be an A. So when I get up my, it brings up the same page, yes, drop C tuning. In fact, I'll write it on here before the screen shuts off. I'm going to want D, A, F, C, G, C, C, G, C. Right, that's my drop C tuning. So now I know I'm going down to G here, and I'm going to C here. To G, sorry, C here. To F here. A. To D. Now I expect this to go out of tune immediately, but what I'm going to do is now stretch my thumb and forefinger. And while I'm doing that, I'm just watching to see whether the bridge comes forward or whether it's still locked down under the tension I've put on it earlier using the claw screws in the back. And right now it's still under good tension. So what it means is, well, once we've got the action all checked and set again, and once we've stretched everything out, what I'll then do is go and tweak release the pressure on the claw at the back until the tremolo arm just is light and easy to press down, but such that bends on higher strings won't cause the plate to lift up, which if you don't have enough spring tension on, you can bend a note high up on an E or a B string, and the bridge will tilt up as you bend, which is not what you want. So you need enough power on to overcome that. So again, a bit more stretching and another sort of hand stretch in a minute. We just want to get all of the slack out, and I've said loads of times on videos that your tuning stability on your guitar depends mainly, or almost entirely, on two things. First one is the nut that you use. So the material, and of the nut. So Tusq is ideal because it's lubricated with PTFE or Teflon, and the free movement of the slots, so wide enough slots. Get the nut right, that's the first thing, and after that get rid of all the excess slack in your strings, which is what I'm doing now. Once you've done those two things, your guitar will stay in tune brilliantly, even if you use the tremolo, as we're going to do here. So the idea that the Strat style tremolo is unstable and doesn't stay in tune is a fallacy. It's not the tremolo's fault. The tremolo works brilliantly well. The tremolo plus slack in your strings plus a sticky nut slot equals detuning, whether you like it or not, and you can't, and it will keep on detuning for years while it ekes out every last bit of slack in those strings. And if your nut slots are grippy, doesn't matter, even if you've got all the slack out of your strings, it'll still go out of tune, because you'll get a pressure differential either side of the nut, which will then equalize when you bend the string, or go the opposite way when you bend the string, and then it'll put the pressure on the other side of the nut, which will keep the string flat, and then when you tune it again, it will go back, and then it'll go sharp and flat. Alright, so there's my stretching. I think I'll do just one more stretching. Obviously with the thinner strings you've got to be careful not to be breaking them. These are quite chunky, but 9s and 8s have a tendency to break if you, but I still think it's worth doing this, even if you once in a while you break a string, because this is your shortcut to tuning stability, which means you can go on and play with your band, for example, and you won't have to be tuning frantically between every single song or in the middle of songs. That's a real bonus. Now the stretchy strings, the wound strings will hold slack a lot more and for longer, so they need a bit more kind of brutal treatment, but that's okay because they can stand it, so they will keep that slack a bit longer. So don't be afraid to give them a bit more. Okay, now I'm just going to go and check each string individually for the height over the last fret. Don't need that plugged in there because they're a little bit uneven at the moment, so we're going to go for a 1.5 target action, which this is just about on, and that's a bit high, I thought so. And this is an American standard, which I'm not sure if the other ones were, so we may have to find a key for this. So we'll just take this down a tiny bit. This will obviously detune it. Millimeters, we have 1 point more. These going into the Tusq, these are quite stiff, these grub screws, but they work well. It's kind of better that they have that positive stiffness than not. 1.5, tiny fraction too high. Let's just quickly put these up to tune. Don't like the jack being there, to be honest. So now we're going to, is it saying B or D? That should be saying D. Hint at being fractionally sharp. Yeah. So I think the E and the B are fractionally sharp, which means they're too short, which means I'm going to pull them away using my screwdriver. Now, if you want, when you do this, give the chance of doing it without your heads of the screws stripping or shredding. Recommend that you detune the one you're about to adjust. It's quick and easy, and Okay, now I think that one's on the mark, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to one by one detune the others, and I'm going to set the tuners, set the saddles where they ought to be in visual pattern, and this is sort of playing it by visual ear, you know what I mean, doing it by eye. So about 1 millimeter between each of these, and then tune up. We get all of these lined up, and then we'll go and check them all again. And usually, if you've got the correct millimeter between them all, as long as you've got the first one right, the rest follows suit. So the D is just slightly forward of the G. And then we make the A step back 1 millimeter from, well, it's not the A anymore, it's whatever the note is correctly, but that's interesting. That, was that creaking in there? No, that's okay. And we'll do the low string, which is a C. Now that one may be, because it's much thicker, it may be require a slightly different intonation spot. This needs to be C. This is C. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to check all of these again. So I'll just sort of tune. I'm sorry. Zoom out a minute. Oh, come on. Thank you. Is that as far out as it can go? Yeah. I will tune each one now and carefully give it a little stretch because we've undone them a bit. That's on. This needs to be A. Yep. F. Try another one. I'm wondering if the... No, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay too. So we are in the right place. That's good. Well, so that's the action set, the intonation set, and what we now only need to know is at what point do we set the tremolo, because that's nice and smooth, but it may be too light. So what I want to do is just go and remove a bit of the tension on here, and the test for me will be, I don't want the thing to come up at the back end now at all, and I certainly don't want it to come up when I bend the string, which it isn't, so that's good. They're a bit heavy gauge for me, so I can't bend too far, but I'll give it as good a go as I can. And as soon as it starts to lift the back end of the plate, I will, which is now, so that now would, yeah, that's now raising it when I bend. So I've just gone past that critical point, 2 turns back, 1, 2. That just lifts it. I'm going to go one turn back again, one on each one, 1. Okay, I'm happy with that. It'll need a bit of a polish when I get home because I haven't got very clean cloths right now. Cool. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Finished. Fixed. Electrics working. New pickups. Oh, one tiny detail. He said, banging the camera. One small detail. Let's just tweak up these pickups. Oh, it's bare knuckles, so we need the thingy screwdriver. So we're just going to bring these up a tiny bit more to about 3 mils under the string when the strings are held down near this bit here, the neck joint. And the same for the back, so these are a bit low. This one is a bit low, I should say. Let's just let this level up. Right, okay, so there we have it, done. Thank you for watching, see you again soon.